Welcome to the Low Carb MD podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope. Nothing said on the Low Carb MD podcast is medical advice. Please consult your own doctor before making any lifestyle changes.
Hello and welcome back to the Low Carb MD podcast. We're going to torture you with me and Tro talking. We had to reschedule our guest, so Tro and I were just hanging out. Like, you could be part of our conversation. We said, what are we going to talk about? We don't know. And that's dangerous because who knows where it's going to go? Who knows where this is going to go?
Actually, I wanted to hear, to be honest with you, Brian, it's so nice to be here, and it's always a pleasure, man. It's always a pleasure. I just got to be honest with you. It's always a pleasure. I wanted to just give me a sneak peek at last week's podcast because I wasn't able to make that. You don't have to give it up, but afterwards you texted me and you said, "Tro, we may be banned again." And so I was like,
you left us unchaperoned.
I'm just curious of what is going on, like what you don't have to spill the beans completely, but.
Well, people will probably hear that before this, but so basically he was doing a lot of research and looking at really what he was focusing on was like positive psychology, like how do you get a team together, instead of doing psychology for okay, your whole life sucks, how do we get you healthy again, he's like, how do we keep people in a positive mindset and moving forward? But he said the more he got through looking at the studies, he's like, there's so much BS out there. You start reading, he's like, these are crazy studies. So ultimately, he writes a paper on how they're doing a lot of studies on like DEI and some of these things. He's like, some of these studies, he goes like, they spent $3 million on how white microaggression causes black people to smoke more marijuana. And it's $3 million our tax dollars paid for. And he goes, like 6 or 8 years later, 0 studies, 0 data. And he goes, what are we doing? And so he started looking at the fraud in the government, and he was actually working with Jay Bhattacharya. And then he gets ghosted. They're sending submissions and all that. Then he's like, no one's talking to me anymore. He goes, what's going on? Like, if I'm doing something wrong, let me know and I'll change it. He said it was just crazy. Like, I'm answering to someone, and I don't know the whole story, obviously, but he was saying that they gave him a whole list of stuff, because what happened is they said, we're going to cut all these crazy studies. But then what happened, he goes, I'm online, and you can see people saying, well, instead of using this word, use this word, and it won't flag it. And you can do all this crazy research stuff. So he started just going through study after study and looking at it and going, so of course we got into the data for the lockdowns and standing in circles 6 feet apart and all these fun things that we like to talk about and so that was basically the gist of it, to hear what he's doing going forward, and some of the people he's been in contact with and what they're doing as far as looking at research. And part of it's saying, as we talk about, and I'll tell you, man, Tro, and I'll give myself a plug here. If you want to listen to a mind-blowing interview, it's Life's Best Medicine I just did with a doctor, a 5-time doctor, Jessica Rose. And she's not only talks about the science and the data, but she really talks about how corrupt the research community is. And, you come up with a study, you could tell me better than I do. That's why I stay out of that part of medicine. But really, she was saying, when you come up with a manuscript, you have to pay $3,000 to have them peer review it. You're paying $3,000, and then they go, whoever, they don't know who's doing it, but there's tons of people who just do, like, this one person did 300 anonymous letters to the editor saying, you got to retract this study. And it's the same person. It's not like 300 different experts saying, hey, this is bad science. They go, it's not bad science. We just don't like what they're saying. And they go, it's kind of the same thing. It all goes one way. So if you're with the narrative, no one complains. If you go against it, you get 500 letters, and then the editors get scared. So they go, we don't want to have problems. We're going to take this down and we're going to put it under investigation. And she's like, here's all of our science. Here's all of our data. And when you hear how this works, you go, can you trust the science? When they say trust the science, right? We knew the science was bad. Then 5 years later, they go, yeah, I don't know if you just saw it, Tro, but it's just mind blowing. I got attacked on social media for talking about natural immunity. If you already had the flu, you don't get the flu shot. Now Paul Offit and I don't mind saying his name. He just said it, and I saw the recording of him saying, "Well, yeah, I knew about natural immunity, but I didn't want to say anything because, I got outvoted, so we didn't say anything about natural immunity. But if you said it, you were a conspiracy theorist." But natural immunity, for people listening, the first description was 450 BC when they had the bubonic plague. They had the black plague going around, and the guy goes, "Hey, you know what? If people got the plague once, they never get it again, and if they do, they don't get sick." So it's not this new theory that just came out. So that's the gist of what we've been talking about recently, Tro.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because people don't really, people don't really understand what the peer review process is like. First of all, there's a certain, 80 to 90% of the publications out there are by a consortium of journals, meaning like 5 or 6 publishers. There's a lot of Taylor and Francis and Selvier, and they charge money to scientists like me to then go ask other scientists to, for free, review what I submitted. Right? It is I have to pay to publish my research. And then they ask me in turn to be a editor or a reviewer, and I have to go and take a look at the work of other people. And if I reject a paper, those people lose out $3,000. It's gone. If their paper was rejected, it's completely gone. So it's a bit of extortion. Now, I want to talk to you about I'm not going to tell you which publication, but a recent paper that I've published. One of the papers I published, we went through, a lot of authors came together, worked on it, and we published this in a pretty good journal. And the journal came back, and the reviewers were anonymous, by the way, which I understand, right? It's an anonymous review process. And the reviewers were so ignorant to the science, it was unbelievable. So we walked through, we educated them, we had to basically convince them of the science, show them the science. Then they finally accepted the paper. After the paper was accepted, they got letters together. And just for the listener to understand, a letter together is somebody who may not agree or somebody who may agree with that paper. And then they write a letter to the editor, and the editor brings it to the authors for a formal response. Okay? This journal decided to keep the letter to the editor completely confidential. They didn't want to disclose to us who wrote the letter, which is completely unorthodox. And their letter claimed that our authors, the 20 some odd authors that were on this paper, had conflicts of interest. But we weren't able to actually see who those authors were if they had conflicts of interest. So
that's exactly the point. If you're anonymous, you could be paid and a lot of people have a lot of money, and they'll say, "Hey, we'll pay you to go." And there's people who don't. And exactly what she was saying. She goes, not even the peer review process. It's the post-publication stuff. They get one person anonymously writes 200 letters, and they go, "Oh my gosh, we don't want to deal with this. We're just going to take the study down." Instead of looking at the study, going, "Here's our methods. Here's what we did. Here's the analysis. Here's," and like the one that the craziest thing is, she said the one that was the problem was a paper that they used for one of their sources that they misquoted what the source said, and they go, what the person who's complaining totally misinterpreted what the paper actually does say. And so then you have to spend, just the they do it just to tie you up, because the manpower it takes to review this, to write a response. He's like, it's just maddening you. I don't want to deal with this anymore. So a lot of these people are saying, we're going to start doing it a different way. We'll pay people to review my paper that are known scientists that are credible. Like, we'll pay you to review it and find problems, because that's how it goes forward. Because if I made a mistake, like we all make mistakes, you go, if it's an honest mistake, correct me, and I'll look at it and go, you're right. We can use a different analysis maybe, or we can, maybe we have to include this data. But she goes, I like that if it's a person that's reasonable. When they do just total crazy stuff that make, like you said, they don't understand the science, and they're correcting your science, like, you have no idea. But it's well worth listening to that episode just for that. There's a lot of other stuff too, I'll tell you, that's mind-blowing. But from that standpoint, when you hear, you go, gosh, how it worked and how much money, because like it's a $40 billion a year industry, the journals,
It's a
right?
huge industry.
So,
Yeah.
if you look at medical journals, it's frustrating because you want to make a copy of a article that you like, but guess what? There's 5 ads in there that you have to like skip over pages so you don't have like just ads, right? It's ad after ad after ad for drug, and you go, okay, if you have a study that's negative for one of those drugs, that they're not going to be really happy to be paying money to be advertising in a magazine or a journal that's saying that what they're doing is wrong.
It is a bit of a racket, but unfortunately, like, this is the process we have. We don't have another way to go around it, and this is why you and I were talking off the line about the SMHP and the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, and anybody out there who's a doctor or health coach should think about joining and becoming certified. But this is why we actually started our own journal. We have the Journal of Metabolic Health, right? Because we were so tired of facing this, and we still have a independent peer review process, an independent editor, an independent editorial team, but these are people who actually understand metabolic health. So when you go to publish a paper, it's with a true consortium of peers and not some peer reviewer who you have to educate. And the problem comes back to, because those publishers are asking us to do it for free. I mean, I can't tell you, Brian, how many I just reject. I'm like, I don't reject the paper. I sign up not to be a peer reviewer because I'm not getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, you're just volunteering that, and they're making the money, and you're working for free. You go, wait a minute, like I don't, it's great. It's like owning McDonald's. You go, okay, we want all of our guys to work for free, and then we can make the money. You go, wait a minute, I want to be paid for what I do. So that's part of it too. But I think part of it is these people. Some of them are being paid, but they're being paid by sources to not allow those to see the light of day, right? That's the issue more than anything, I think, is that some of these studies, if they threaten the status quo, because you think about it, like, as an example, I gave a talk in San Diego, and one of the guys goes, I have an in at the ADA. I want you to speak before the ADA. I started laughing. Oh, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Ain't no way gonna happen. Then he calls me. He was really working hard. He really wanted to make it happen. But they kept saying, well, if he doesn't work for a major corporation, or if he's not working for a major university, then we're not interested. And now what they're doing now is, after the food pyramid flipped upside down, now they're saying, yeah, low carb keto is the way to go. Like, after fighting it all these years, you go, wow, this is wild. It's just crazy. Like, that's one thing we never thought we'd see, but it's just such a bizarre, and I think this, Tro, all of us, I think.
Can I talk about that
go
for
ahead.
a second? I wanted to talk about this for a sec.
Please do.
And I'm not going to say any names because it may not happen, but a very, very large medical organization contacted me, Brian. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not going to disclose who, because nothing's finalized yet, and said, we made a mistake. And we want to interview you. We want to come out to your practice. We want to show people what deep prescription is about. We want to show people. And at first, I didn't know how to handle it, Brian. I was like, every part of me was like, I don't trust this, right? I don't trust this.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we're at that tipping point, Brian, where maybe we got to, go with open arms or not. I don't know. A very, very big medical organization. So what should I do, Brian? You've always been my confidant, and
yeah,
you've guided me really well.
I mean, trust but verify. I mean, we have the data. That's the thing, is when we talk about stuff, we have the data. As they come after us, here's my data. I don't care. Like, stuff I've been talking about lately is not popular, but you go, I'm seeing it nonetheless. So what do? I do 2 podcasts in a row with people. I go, here's what I'm seeing. You're the scientist. Explain why I'm seeing what I'm seeing. Instead of saying I'm not seeing what I'm seeing, because so many doctors, I'm telling you, like right now, it's just classic, because they'll find it. It's one of those things. Like, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, right, and you see someone dead in the road and you see tire tracks over them, you go, most likely they got hit by a car. But these doctors are saying, well, just because it's that, I mean, it could have been that they were skydiving and it just happens that they're, and they explain this whole thing away and go, is that like logical that it'll possibly be that? Like, it doesn't make sense. And so what you see is like and I mean, Peter McCullough and I had a great discussion about this. Like, how come people aren't looking? It's because they don't want to know. Because if I recommended something to you, and then something bad happens to you, I don't want to know that it was me who did that. I don't want to know. I'll just say, man, you have bad luck, Tro, that you just got a atrial fibrillation out of nowhere. It's probably not the drug I just gave you last week. It's got to be something different.
I think they're also
correlation is not causation, right?
I think they're so used to just discounting this, and it's hard. It's hard to take ownership. It's very hard to take ownership, and there's no way to prove it. But we have to consider it. This is life. Life is one big experiment. There is no study for the patient in front of you. There's not one study that you can point to that will tell you what to do with that patient. It's the best judgment from the best data you have, from the patterns you've seen, from your wisdom, your clinical experience, your interpretation of the data, right? This is medicine, right?
That's what we do. And we go, how come it's not working for this one patient? Why? And that's when I started looking at this going, what else can it possibly be? I talked to experts like, how can this possibly be? If they eat zero sugar, how can they have high A1C and high insulin? How can they possibly be insulin resistant? And then you say, well, let me talk to William Davis, who says everything's coming from wheat. You go, how can we? And that's what I love about him. I asked him, like, Tro, we have to have him on here. I think I just reached out to him to come on, but I just interviewed him again. I just love the guy.
Him and McCullough. We got to get McCullough on too. We got to talk to him about saturated fat. I think a little bit.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be a fun discussion. I don't know how well that would go over, but yeah, I think it'd be a good time. But that's the thing too, is like, just some people will be right in one area, doesn't mean they're right in everything, And so we have maybe different clinical experience, and maybe we convince him by having a discussion, going, here's what we're seeing. So that was the thing when I shared William Davis, all this crazy gut microbiome. Like, I'm finding when I fix the gut microbiome, the sugars get better. And guess what else, Tro? And I've researched and looked at it now. Did you know that chronic elevation of spike protein, right? COVID spike protein, chronic elevation causes insulin resistance. Worsening, and it blocks the insulin receptors and causes all kinds of other issues. And you go, maybe we have to factor that into what we're doing. So that's what I'm saying is like, there's so much stuff we don't understand, but if you go, we know enough clinically to say, okay, if I cut out carbs, what should happen? Triglycerides should drop like crazy. HDL should go up. LDL is a you don't know what it's going to do. Like, depends if you're gaining weight, losing weight, other factors, or if you have leaky gut, could cause high LDL by itself. So when you start seeing these things, you go, why am I seeing this? Like, how can it possibly be? And that's what I had to question. Is like, how can you be carnivore for 5 years and your A1C is 6.3 and your insulin 17? It doesn't make either what we believe is wrong or there's something else going on.
100%. I thought to myself, what if the microbiome is making alcohol? What if the microbiome's making alcohol? Right? It's been documented.
Right? It ferments. That's what you do when you make wine.
Right? What if the microbiome's making alcohol? It causes insulin resistance, raises A1C, independent of carbohydrates.
Well,
right? So there's
and you look at this.
Things like, did you consider in every single one of those patients that I've had, Brian, fasting takes care of the issue. Almost everyone. I want to say 90%. Fasting. Prolonged fast.
Don't tell Jason Fung, man, he's going to get a big head. But I see the same thing. If you fast, like all these things, because you're changing your gut microbiome, you're resting your gut microbiome a little bit. You're going to have mitochondrial benefits. There's benefits, right? Mental clarity, less cravings, all those. I mean, I don't know everyone I talk to. If you fast for 36 hours, after that, you're not really hungry. You go, it's up here. You go, I should be eating. That looks good. But you go, am I really hungry? Like most people say I'm not hungry and I'm clear and I feel good. But we go, I don't want to have to fast again because mentally it's so hard. But I fast every Monday now, until Tuesday. And go, okay, Sunday night we eat. Tuesday I'll eat something whenever I get to it type thing. But, the more you do it, I mean, obviously it takes time to get, adapted to that and all those things. But you're right. There's so much we're seeing that you go, Jason Fung has a point. And, William Davis actually, like, he's a good one for sure. Cause he actually goes, do you know Brian Cahill? I was like, is he a researcher? He goes, no, he was the Biggest Loser winner in like 2016. He goes, you know what he did after he left the show? I said, no. He goes, he worked out 2 hours a day and ate 1,000 calories a day. You know what happened to him in the next year? He gained all of his weight back plus some.
Yeah.
You go, oh my gosh, that is crazy, right? You look at it and go, how can that possibly be? He's working out 2 hours a day. None of us have time for that, you know? And then William Davis goes, I work out 15 minutes a week and I feel great and he's in good shape. And you go, this is just, it's just so frustrating for people, right? When you hear those kind of things, you go, man, do we just screw up our metabolic rate permanently? Is it just, you know, it's just learning, a learning process. But, you know, again, so Tro, because, you know, it's so fun talking to someone like that. So I'm like, okay, let me understand your brain, doc. How did you go from putting stents in people's coronary vessels to looking at wheat causing issues? Like, how do you make this connection that the guts like has to do with heart disease? Like, they're totally unrelated, right? And he goes, well, Brian, I was putting stents in people with LDLs of 70. And it bothered me, and it bothered me, and no one could give me an answer. And he asked the people, what do you do? Are you stressed? Do you smoke pot? Are you on cocaine? Like, why do you have coronary disease with an LDL of 70? And he said, the answer that kept coming back is wheat. They eat a lot of whole wheat. I eat whole wheat. I eat whole wheat toast. I eat my oatmeal every morning. I'm like, he goes, this doesn't make sense. So what does he do? Starts talking to people who are in functional medicine. He goes, how can wheat with zero fats and a bunch of fiber cause heart disease? If it's a contributor, and these guys go, leaky gut. If they have gluten sensitivity, we don't use the right, we have GMO and all this stuff. So he starts looking and going, holy cow, all these people have leaky gut. That's how he makes the connection. And he goes, what can leaky gut have to do with coronary disease, right? It's not about the LDL cholesterol, maybe. Maybe it's a contributor if you're metabolically sick. Maybe it is a contributor sometimes. Maybe sometimes it's not. So I think people I respect have this nuance going, how come in this person it's a problem? Right.
So there was that recent study, and I'm bringing it up because it showed a dysbiosis in the gut that caused.
Tro, I can't believe we're having this conversation, man. For how many years have you like rolled your eyes when I go
No,
you
I
go,
think
you
it
have
is
that
big,
guest on? Are you kidding me?
I think it is a big eye roll, to be honest with you, right? It's a huge eye roll because the modulating it is not as easy as you know. You have to test like what you're doing, which is, but you know, we like way back when, I think 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we talked about the seizure prevention from a ketogenic diet comes from the microbiome. We talked to Sean O'Mara like 4 years ago, talking about, you know, Tanaka, the huge you know, the sumo wrestler that took his microbiome and transplanted it into mice, and they got stronger, right? So, you know, we've talked about C. diff before, but I think, you know, how do you modulate it?
Well,
you know,
we do.
Are you taking inulin? Are you taking, you know, are you gonna eat more fiber? Are you sure the right bacteria is gonna grow? Which bacteria is causing the problem? You
figure it, if you look, like, really, if you don't look, you're not going to find it. And so one of the things you do is okay, let's just, like, you're having these, I don't check everyone. I go, but if it's weird, your triglycerides are high and you've been carnivore for 3 years, doesn't fit, right? When you see something that doesn't fit, you go, let's look farther and see. I'm sure there's a lot of other biochemistry. There's a lot of other stuff you can look at, but without exception, I'll say now, in my carnivores, if they do great at the beginning and they get worse with time, if we look at the gut microbiome, we're going to find an answer. So if the point is I eat zero fiber, and some of these guys who make the mucus layer of the colon, who break down some of these endotoxins, if they're gone or they're starving and they start eating your mucus layer, you better look at that and say, well, maybe I just appease those guys. And do you get kicked out of the club if you have a scoop of inulin a couple times a week, maybe? And if your gut gets better, I'm telling you, Tro, I've seen enough where I have a guy, I think I told you about him. I mean, these are anecdotes because I'm just an anecdotal doctor, but I have a guy, his A1C in 15 years hasn't been below 6.3. I've been working with him. He's been working out, fasting, cutting his carbs to zero, doing all this stuff, and can't get it below 6.3. And I go, let's look at your gut, man. And we look at his gut. He has dysbiosis. We put him on some stuff to fix it. Next time I check his A1C, it's 5.8. And I go, holy cow, are you eating, how many carbs are you eating? Do you cut your carbs down? He goes, I'm eating more carbs than I have in the last 15 years. I go, why are you eating more carbs? He said, because I'm watching my sugars and they're running in the 80s all the time. He goes, before I was 120, 115 all the time. So I'm like, okay, we'll take it. And I'm seeing him in next week, and I can't wait to see his labs. But also, we have a lot of confounders. If your spike protein is really high, guess what? Your gut microbiome doesn't heal. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing people and I go, let's just check it for the heck of it. Oh, Your spike protein's over 25,000 still. Let's try to treat it. Gut gets better. So these guys all play a role. And that's why I love talking to different people like Sabine Hayes. And you go, what are you seeing in your gut? Guess what? She called it years ago, but no one listens yet. So I think all these things you're right. It's hard to modulate, but what I can tell you is stress isn't going to help your gut microbiome. There's anyone with IBS knows they get stressed and their gut gets worse. Drinking alcohol every day is not going to help your gut microbiome. Not getting out in the sun is not going to help. Being in the sauna. And these are crazy things, Tro. Like this is one that came up. Anyone who listens to the podcast, it was surprising to me too. Peter McCullough and I had a good discussion because he is the guy who's treating myocarditis. You know, he's watching. He's the resource center for people with myocarditis, you know, and cardiac issues, right? That's what he does. And he goes, how come all the athletes, if the spike protein is an issue, how come they're not all dropping dead anymore? And I was like, well, they're not uptaking anymore. They're not getting the shots. And he goes, that's part of it. They figured that out. But if they don't die in the first few months, they sweat out through the mRNA sweats out through the sweat. You can detox. He goes, you have no natural way to break this down in your body. There's no enzyme in our body that breaks this down. So who do I talk to? PhD in virology, PhD in biochemistry, PhD, Dr. Rose. And she started laughing and I go, oh, he's wrong. And then she goes, I'm surprised he knows that. That's absolutely correct. You can sweat out the modified messenger RNA in your sweat. So guess what? Exercise, going in the sauna, all these things that we know are helpful that help the gut microbiome also help detox this, right? And so you look and you go, man, there's a lot of stuff we just know is good for us, right? So talking to experts and Sabine Hayes saying you can detox stuff through your gut. That's where your gut is huge for autoimmune disease. And so it's not the end all be all, like you're saying, but you go, okay, if it's contributing, if I'm starving myself and my sugars are still high, maybe I should look at that.
If things don't add up, I think that's the time to dig deeper. So that 2025 study, I was just looking it up, was a study in Nature that looked at the microbiome taking histidine and breaking it down to imidazole propionate.
Yeah, IMP. It's a disaster, right?
Yeah, and that was very, certain species, Prevotella, Clostridium, Enterococcus, E. coli, and Rumenakis. I haven't even heard of Rumenakis. And very interesting. Basically, this disrupts endothelium. It suppresses nitric oxide, and it accelerates atherosclerosis independent of cholesterol, completely independent of cholesterol.
So this comes back. This comes back, Tro, to what we're talking about. If you're metabolically sick, your gut's going to be a mess. If your gut's a mess, you're going to have leaky gut. And this IMP is important. It's important because it goes across and it causes atherosclerosis. So if they take this out and they go, maybe it's just a bystander. They inject this into mice, they all get atherosclerosis with normal sugar, normal insulin, all these things. So if we're seeing coronary disease, this is why I go, okay, you can't just say, I'm a lean mass hyperresponder, so I'm fine. What happens if you're a lean mass hyperresponder with a bad gut? Then what? What happens to your cardiac risk? If this is the problem, is it but then you get to go, well, these carnivores are eating more steak and that's why these are happening. Go, what if it's the gut and we just fix that? You go, that's what I mean is we have to have an open mind to say, if every single person who goes on carnivore diet does great. Like Sean Baker, I'm not going to argue with you. But if you are that person, so when I gave that talk in San Diego, I wasn't really excited about doing it because I knew I was going to take heat. But I had 15 people after that talk come up to me and go, I'm an outlier. I'm an outlier. I'm an outlier. I'm an outlier.
I've seen it again and again. The only thing that I've seen to address this in my clinical practice, and maybe you see giving inulin or doing fermented carbohydrates may reconstitute, is fasting. It's just fasting. And I'm just looking at what are the causes of the highest flux of histidine, which the bacteria uses then to make IMP. Basically, refined carbohydrates, white bread, rice flour, ultra-processed grain snacks, added sugars, and alcohol, right? And basically, fiber imbalance, low inulin sources. That's What are the sources of inulin in the diet, Brian? How do you
Yeah,
get
there's not
inulin?
very, and we can look across the board, and this is why I really started looking at it, because all of us keto people are like butyrate. You need butyrate, beta hydroxybutyrate. Those are ketones. Where's butyrate come from? Butter. That's it. That's the main food source, and it's minuscule. Where's your best source of butyrate? Give some inulin to your lactobacillus and these other guys and let them make it. Akkermansia, they make it for you. So they're going to make huge numbers because guess what? You have to get everything by the stomach acid. That is the issue. So, like William Davis has all these different yogurts that have good bacteria. So if you have C. diff colitis, it's not the issue is that you're lacking your good bacteria, right? If you have enough good people in your neighborhood, the gang members don't take over anymore because you stand up and go, you can't run the neighborhood anymore. We're done with you, right? But if everyone's hiding, the gangs run in El Salvador as an example, they ran everything for a while, and then they came out and said, you guys are done. So that's like the gut microbiome is like a society. And not only that, acetic acid, so many of us talk about that's a short chain fatty acids, acetic acid, right? So acetic acid, butyrate, propionate are the three main ones that we have. Not great food sources, but the food source really that's going to help that is inulin, which comes from chicory, it comes from asparagus, it comes from garlic, and so different things. You go, okay, if I starve those guys too much, what are they going to do? They're going to eat the mucus layer that they were making for us. Akkermansia, if you look at diabetics type 2, generally Akkermansia is super low. And so they have leaky gut. And so if you look, and even if you don't do any of that, even if you're, well, I wouldn't say you're keto necessarily, but I'm saying if you're doing like gluten and you have gluten sensitivity, you're going to have leaky gut, gut inflammation, increased risk of cardiovascular. So you could go your whole life and just eat whole wheat and die of a heart attack never eating fat. Right? As we know, you could eat a ton of carbohydrates, never have a drop of fat, and have high LDL cholesterol and high triglycerides and dysbiosis. And you're feeding all these bad guys. So maybe it all comes back to that, Tro. I mean, that's why like the thing that fascinated me is talking about the seizure disorder. That was surprising. I had to repeat it to make sure at the Charlie Foundation when she goes, yeah, these kids do keto for a year or two, and then they're not in ketosis anymore and they don't have seizures. Why? Maybe those ketones healed the gut lining. Maybe that's part of what we see the benefit in our patients and cognitive benefits. We're talking about dementia, Parkinson's. And so no matter what, it all comes back to metabolic disease, right? So anything with chronic inflammation, anything that causes dysbiosis in our gut is not going to be good. So, picking our poison, does that mean we should never drink again? It's like you want to enjoy life and have a drink every once in a while. I've been dry for a month, by the way, Tro. Almost a month. So anyways, like you go,
You never struck me as somebody who drank regularly. Maybe.
No, I'm not a heavy drinker, but if I have friends come over and they open a bottle of wine, you have a glass of wine here and there, you do whatever, you go see your friend in San Diego and he goes, hey, we haven't seen it for a while. Let's have a beer. Okay. I'm not eating the keto. I mean, not eating the happy hour food, but I'll have a beer with you. So yeah, but it catches up with me very quickly. So I realize, okay, cut it out. It's not good. Is there a benefit other than social? There's really not a benefit. Alcohol is a toxin, and those of us in ketosis, it knocks you out of ketosis like nothing else, really. And so if I'm skipping the Twinkies, but I'm gonna have beers, it's not very helpful, right? I'm not eating bread, but I'll have the yeast and all the other. So yeah, it's a trade-off because there's a lot of, Tro, there's a lot of people who are doing keto. I'm doing strict keto. You're having 3 glasses of wine at night? That's gonna have an effect over time,
Yeah,
right?
I drink like a handful of times a year, just a handful of times. I keep it to an absolute minimum. I just don't feel good, I don't feel good on it at all. And the next day I don't feel good. But I think, Brian, to give you credit, you're definitely onto something with the microbiome. And I've been doing a lot more of the GI map testing, a lot more of the, the markers of sort of, fecal calprotectin, lactoferrin, looking at, fecal leukocytes, doing a lot of stool ovum parasites, doing a lot of zonulin testing, and it's definitely a learning curve. And there's nowhere to learn this. That's the worst part. There's not like a.
Well, there is. I mean, that's why it's crazy. Like I even Dave Feldman said it to me. And then my patient texted me, goes, Dave Feldman's talking about the gut microbiome now. But when I talked about it then, because I go, look, it plays a role. It's a factor. But they go, well, there's not enough research. I'm like, I spent months looking at research, month after month. And you look at this research and you go, holy cow, this is wild. Not what I'm getting at is just because people don't know about it doesn't mean it's not there. Because if you start looking at, okay, what's the role of I mean, there's so many studies, novel treatment of coronary disease, gut microbiome issues. Like if this is low, you're more likely to have this problem. If, just like that's like we talked about the IMP.
Well, when that study came out with IMP, the first thing I did was any interventional styles looking at like IMP production or looking at the gut microbiome, like the top three, and there's no interventional study showing a decreased production or a decrease in those species. Right. So then you have to go to observational studies and then.
Well, the thing you have to, but what you have to look at is this. You go, okay, what's the mechanism of action? So for instance, I'll just tell you my story. Like, I had 2 years of hell when I first went keto, actually. I started losing weight. Things are good. And all of a sudden I'm getting hives. Like, what the hell is this? I don't have hives. I'm not allergic to anything. Hives. Lip swells up. I go, oh, it's going to happen. My lip would swell up. My whole face was like a car. Did I ever show you those pictures?
Yeah, I know.
It's crazy. I've shown them at conferences because I was like, what the heck is going on? Is this, and maybe I'm allergic to ketones? Maybe, because you have to say, what is happening? I was fine. Now I'm a disaster. So it turned out ultimately I had mold toxicity from my office. There was a bunch of mold up above my head sitting there. But just listening to people on podcasts and someone goes, hey, someone asks an expert on gut microbiome, says, hey, when do you think about parasites? And he goes, oh, anyone who has autoimmune disease for sure, no question. As a matter of fact, I just posted something about a month and a half ago. I said, anyone in functional medicines who's looking at the gut, has anyone seen a patient with autoimmune disease that has a normal gut? And all these people, 41 years, never seen it. 12 years, never seen it. I didn't have people going, I see it all the time. I didn't see one person respond that way because I haven't seen it personally myself. So I go, huh. So if I see someone with a lupus or autoimmune disease, first thing I'm thinking is gut, right? If you're diabetic, do you have an increased risk of autoimmune disease? Do you have an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease? Do you have an increased risk of, it's all comes back to metabolic function, right? So, sorry, I went on a tangent. I lost the original question, Tro.
No, we're talking about, like I was looking at, you were talking about your gut,
Yeah, so then when you look at it and you go, okay, what does Acromantia do? It maintains the gut lining. So if you do have IMP, but you have a good gut lining, what's your chance of that leaking across? Pretty much zero. What do? Poop it out. Who cares? No harm, no foul. So if you have leaky gut, that IMP leaks across. Now it gets to the vasculature. Now it causes problems. So when you start thinking in those terms, you go, what does lactobacillus do? Oh, guess what? It detoxes antihistamines. Guess what? A lot of people with histamine reactions, they're lacking lactobacillus in these 3 or 4 that break that down in the gut. So you break it down before you absorb it into your bloodstream. Why absorb toxins if you don't have to? Doesn't make sense. So you go, maybe I should look at that if I'm carnivore and all of a sudden I'm starting to get hives. And I've seen it. I've seen people with multiple food sensitivities. They go, I'm allergic to all these foods. I can't eat them. And then 6 months later, they go, I'm eating all these foods. I'm fine. Why? Well, we talk about lectins. Like there's some great lectures on lectins. If you have a normal mucus layer of your colon and a normal gut microbiome, you don't have problems with lectins. It would be a 1 in a billion chance you have a problem with a lectin. So you avoid a whole class of foods because you're worried about lectins. Fix your gut, and then these lectins don't bug you anymore, right? And I have tons of clinical experience. People say, "Oh, I can never eat asparagus before. Now I eat asparagus all the time. I don't get rashes or hives, or my face doesn't swell up." But it's all these things you have to. And the reason I'm biased this way because I personally experienced it. I was on prednisone for 2 years, right, just to be able to work, because I would have hives and you can't go into with your eyes swollen shut and see patients, So I had no choice until I figure out, oh, guess what? I killed off the parasite. I got rid of the mold. I did a mold detox, all this fancy functional stuff. But what I can tell you is I haven't had a hive in 6 years. I was having it every single day of my life.
I remember like those pictures that you sent me with your face was huge.
I mean, it was totally it was ridiculous.
It looked like angioedema.
Oh yeah, totally. And I got checked for that because I'm like, my wife was like, shoot epi, you're going to die. I'm like, my airway's open. I look like hell, but there's so many people that experience that. So when you see it now, I go, oh, I know what this is. I've seen this before. It's not histamine, because these guys break down histamines in the gut too. So if your gut's screwed up, you're going to have a histamine problem. Guess what? Some of those guys break down uric acid. So a lot of people have bad uric acid. They're getting it can go back to the gut, right? So all these could be a contributor rather than taking allopurinol. Maybe you fix your gut and you don't have to take allopurinol because you're not absorbing all these toxins into your body. So we have to look at that and at least say, maybe it is, maybe it's not, maybe it's not in your case. But a vast majority of people, when they're having weird stuff, we can figure out if we look enough and, go, you're having, Tro, I'm telling you, we'll talk offline, but I'm telling you, I've had people have like miracle improvements by taking out some of these toxins, like miracles. Like you look and you go, wow, like they're never going to leave me as a patient. I even changed the lady's tire yesterday, Tro, because I'm a DPCI at time, and like poor lady's there, she has a flat tire. I'm like, I got 15 minutes. I think I can do it. Let's do it. I just changed my tire a few weeks ago. I could probably get a personal best. So we changed her tire, and I had three new patients call me yesterday. Go, is that true that you? That's my wife. Did you change her tire? Really? She told us you changed her tire after her appointment. I'm like, my wife's like, yeah, he did. So
I was looking at the just driving with what you were saying. The most linked organism was the Prevotella species that made the IMP. And I just said, okay, like let's figure out the highest amount of data regarding interventional trials that have been shown to decrease just that particular species. And lo and behold, carbohydrate restriction has been shown to potently reduce it.
Bingo.
Ramadan fasting has been shown to drastically
decrease Prevotella.
Yeah, to drastically.
So Jason Fung is right again. Fasting fixes Prevotella. If that's what's causing your heart disease and you fast, well, maybe that's why we're seeing benefit.
Interesting. High protein, right, increases the histidine. So there's something to be said. They're saying that this branched chain amino acids, right, like high amino acid loads increase histidine and make these things thrive. So if you're, doing like, let's say a high protein carnivore, maybe you could be driving it in the wrong direction. If you're doing a mixed diet, it's very interesting. It's like, we got to test. There's no way to know without testing.
I think what I think, Tro, because there's a lot of people who are quote carnivore, but they're carnivore, but they're going to the birthday party, they're gonna have different desserts or fruits or vegetables.
They may be just setting themselves up to just keep.
No, they may be helping themselves. And the people who are more having a problem are super strict. Go, that's it. I'm not eating anything but that. That's it.
Yeah,
nothing else.
But then fast. Right?
But I think fasting, I think it does benefit you. But I think, why not add a scoop of inulin here and there and just feed the gut microbiome? Let that, like we all know, Tro, what causes C. diff colitis?
Antibiotics.
Yeah. Why does antibiotics cause C. diff colitis?
Yeah, because they get rid of the police officers. That's
you get rid of all the good people. All the firemen start dying off, and all the police officers are dying, and then you start getting riots in the streets. So you go, okay, why don't we just take care of the police officers and the firemen and keep them there? Give them a little inulin and make them happy.
It makes sense, but there was an interesting study, Brian. I totally get it, right? But what I'm saying is, a lot of bad things happen with good ideas, right? And this is where I stand, and this is why it's so tough for me to go somewhere new. It's not because I don't think there's something to be said. I think for years I've known the microbiome is a powerful sort of thing. But there was a study I just looked at with microplastics. I don't know if you saw the study or not. It was, and I posted it on X. It was looking at microplastics in water bottles, and they looked at glass bottles and they looked at plastic bottles. And the idea was how much more microplastics are in these plastic bottles. That was the purpose of the study. And they did the study, they looked at the microplastics, and all of a sudden it's like 10 times more in the glass bottle. 10 times more in the glass bottle. And you know where it came from? Did you know about the study?
No.
It was the cap. So the metal caps are painted, right? And when they crimp the caps and are doing the caps, because they paint the inside and outside, that little bit of paint from the abrasion and the crimping and the moving and opening, these, it's the microplastics from the paint were getting into the water. So you have this thing where we all know, okay, these microplastics are terrible. They're depositing in our organs, our testes, our brain, our hearts, right? And then you go to do something about it, and it makes sense. It's like, it's a glass bottle. Of course it's going to be better than the plastic bottle, but he was the complete opposite. And this is why I'm hoping, for more interventional trials. Like, let's get those people and test give them inulin.
And even with that, there's certain gut microbiome that will digest plastic. There's certain, like in Asian cultures, they have a gut microbiome that will help digest seaweed. We don't have that. So maybe that's why some people can eat their cultural food and they do fine, and we go there and we get all jacked up. So there's so much of that when you start looking, you go, and the other thing I know, Tro, that's very encouraging to me, because when I heard both Peter McCullough and Jessica Rose say the same thing, they said there's no way to break this spike protein. This modified messenger RNA cannot be broken down by the human body. They both are saying it. You can sweat it out through your sweat by working out, exercising, doing what we're saying. But then, my hope is, like Exxon Valdez, when these big, huge oil spills happen, like within a few years, everything goes back to normal somehow, because the earth is so good at saying, okay, there's too much. Let's digest it with this algae. Let's use it. And some other animal uses this byproduct and all this stuff. All of a sudden you cleaned it up. And I think our body hopefully will say, you know what, this thing's sitting around here the last 6 years. We got to do something with it. And let's adjust something. Let's make an enzyme that, I don't know. It's just, I know we have a miraculous body, but this is something that we've never seen before. So you go, I'll sit in the sauna a couple times a week. Even if they're wrong, I'm going to do that. I don't care. The risk and benefit is very nice, and I can sit and relax and breathe and calm my nervous system down maybe. But, all these things that we're talking about, Tro, but you're right. You could see how all these things, you go, maybe, just maybe, the mechanism of why the low carb ketogenic diet is it has a big role in the gut microbiome. So can interventional studies by taking a certain drug or not taking it? No, but we know. I mean, there's certain things that, you got, again, going back, you go, okay, why is the Mediterranean diet so popular? Why does it work in the Mediterranean? Well, because they have a Mediterranean lifestyle. They chill. They're not eating the microplastics. They're like living off the land. They're growing their own stuff. They go, too windy, not working today. I'm not going to go sailing. Oh, let's hang out. Can I help you fix your yard? Having that, all these things we talked about over the years. And when you see it, I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of times they'll say, my dad lived to be 80. Like, I just talked to one of my patients, and she's a high stressor, and she goes, my dad. I go, you're like your dad in a way. Like, if you have his genes, you're good. She goes, you know what I don't have of his? Nothing bothered him. He lived to be 90. She said, he was a high functioning attorney, like really well respected in the community. But she said, I worry about everything. My dad would be like, oh well. My dad's like that. He smoked and drank until he's in his mid 80s now. You go, there's no way he should have lived this long. But part of it is like, doesn't hold a grudge, doesn't get upset with people. Does that affect your gut microbiome? Yeah. Does it affect your catecholamine response and all these things? So that's why I don't fight with people on Twitter. I see stupid stuff and I go, okay, I'm not going to let you kill me early. I want to spend time with my wife and kids. I don't want to deal with arguing with some guy who has 90 followers that knows more science than Tim Noakes. I'm not going to argue with you, dude. Okay, you're right, whatever. It's all these kind of things where you start seeing, like, we observe who has longevity and who doesn't. All right.
Yeah, we know who's been right a lot more than they've been wrong too. I mean, the receipts are all there. Tim Noakes, Gary Fedke, Jason Fung. We just and honestly, Brian, you and I, like, we've been right, and the receipts are all there. So it's
who would have bet at the beginning of this podcast we'd be talking about metabolic mind and what Chris Palmer is doing, Georgia Ede, and all these people, what they're doing from cancer research, Alzheimer's research, Melanie Tidman, like doing stuff with Parkinson's that are miraculous work, and you go, it all comes back to metabolic health. Yep. So throwing all the drugs at something in the world is not going to fix metabolic health. There may be things that assist. You can argue that GLP-1, sorry, I get excited. The GLP-1s, you can say, yeah, there's benefits or something, but is it going to benefit you if you take a GLP-1 and you eat crappy food and you're stressed out and you drink, smoke pot every night and you're drinking a gallon of Jack Daniels a week? We have to look at that and go, really? Enjoying life, having fun, like us, going to Alaska together and chilling a little bit, even though.
Oh man, what a great time that was.
Yeah, I can't go this year. I gotta work, man. But
I feel you.
Yeah. I feel you. So Tro, tell me the highlights of Boca now that we're getting philosophical. We have a couple minutes left.
It was great. It was on cardiac disease prevention.
Was there anything you learned that you go, wow, this is new information?
Yeah, I mean, Arthur Agustin talked a lot. Like Arthur Agustin talked about volume and density, and
Did he have like 3,000 slides?
yeah, of course he always does. And
Because he loves it.
everybody.
And people listening, Arthur Agassiz, he was the South Beach diet guy. He's like Ben Bakikio. These guys are just the real deal. Like you could just sit down and there's no pretense, super nice people. And just like you wouldn't expect him to be like, he's the Agassiz scorer on the coronary calcium score. That's him. And you go, wow, he's a cool guy too. And he's been around a few years.
He certainly has. It was just great. We had several posters were up. Our poster was up on diabetes remission, which Dr. Laura and Dr. Matt Calkins worked a lot on.
What you talking about, man? I'm gonna listen to the recordings.
Yeah, you got to wait and see. You got to go. You got to get the recordings to see. It's about plaque reversal. It's about all the evidence regarding the most commonly used modalities to reverse plaque. So,
Oh man.
yeah, and we presented unpublished data. So we're going to publish this data on our, cohort of 120 consecutive patients in our practice. So, and what how we reduced their cardiovascular disease. It was awesome. Rob Sivis gave a great talk. Phil Ovadia, Lily Johnston. It was just awesome. I had to leave before Eugene Chung gave a talk. He's a sports medicine doctor, a cardiologist who's just amazing. That's one thing I'm going to catch on the replay. So if you're all hearing this, and Jack, maybe put the, way that everybody can get the CME in the show notes so that they can also, if you're a doctor or dietitian or nurse out there, you're going to need, these are AMA PR1 CME. And the reason why we have that is because of Dr. Matt Calkins and Doug Reynolds, who really put a lot into making sure that
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of effort, man. Doug has done such great work, and his vision. Like you think about it, like this is hilarious. When I saw the first thing I thought when I saw the new food pyramid, I'm like, that's Doug's food pyramid. They stole it. That's like a copyright infringement. He had it upside down for how long? Since I've known him since like,
Yeah.
8 years, 12 years, something crazy. And you go, wow, like it's like who would think these things, Tro? Like really well, like even you and I mean, I was a skeptic for sure, and I'm pretty open-minded. I was like, there's no way it's gonna happen. There's no way. And then to see the stake on the very top left corner for Sean Baker, I was like, wow, that is shocking. It is.
I think it's a testament to all the people who were part of it. If you look at the HHS, we've got to give credit to them. The leadership of certainly Doug Reynolds at Low Carb USA and the SMHP. I think I wouldn't discount the people in this room right now, Brian, like us, constantly pushing the boundaries and reaching out and being vocal. Nina Teicholz. I have to just say, Nina Teicholz, I don't think we would have had the guidelines.
She's a warrior, man. Nina
Jan
and then
Allison, Jan Allison Bazuki,
yeah.
absolute like warrior out there who's
Ben Bickman.
Ben Bickman, who's on the Jeff Volek, who's on the guidelines committee, Ty Beal, who we have to get on the podcast. I mean, it's what a blessing, and gosh, Brian, the HHS and the White House retweeted me. They quoted my tweet, of all things. So, it's a momentous time to be a part of the metabolic health movement and making America healthy. But
yeah, and for people who supported us,
the real work is now. Yeah, and we have to thank the real work is now. We got to go out to the schools. We got to go out to the hospitals. Doug and I have to work to get every single
medical
thought
schools.
leader to talk in every single medical school, which is now required to have nutrition and metabolic health training. So we need to go out there to the schools feeding our kids, make sure they change the foods, make sure they change the pyramids. I mean, there's so much work to do still, and thanks to every support.
Yeah, and if ADA, if you want me to come talk, I'd be glad to do it. Just invite me. I'll be there. I'd be glad to come join you.
Yeah,
the ADA, if they want to invite me now.
Yeah, we may be able to arrange something like that, Brian.
But honestly, Tro, I'll tell you, the reason we started this podcast is we saw the standard of care was horrific for diabetes, right? I was thinking about this morning when I woke up. I thought, when's the last time I saw a diabetic foot ulcer? When's the last time I had a patient go to dialysis? When's the last time I had a patient have a bypass surgery? I can't remember, Tro. It was back before 2020 for sure, before I left my old practice, right? I mean, this dates way back, and like my whole life was Una boots and like fixing stuff. And you go, this is horrific, man. I don't want my patients going through this. And so to see the prevention we can do now, and you know, we're saving the system, we're saving Medicare, we're helping like that. This has to get, you know, and that's why we started the podcast saying we're going to put our necks out, but what we will do if someone comes after us, we will have had by the time they come after us at least 150 doctors saying that they're doing the same thing with the same results as not just us talking BS over here. So when we had that changes the standard of care. All these people, Chris Palmer we had on early on, we had a lot of people on that were, you know, at the time we were questionable, like, are these guys like, let's talk to Chris Palmer, he's treating schizophrenia. Like we both were like, let's talk to this guy and see what he's saying. Then when he explains the science and what he's doing and his clinical experience, you go, wow, this is something, right? Because we saw depression, anxiety getting better. That's no big deal to us anymore. That's just expected. So, you know, but it's amazing how much things have changed over the last 5 years, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and we're lucky, Brian. You know, we're lucky that you know, and I remember, you know, like 2018 when you're like, Tro, you know, maybe they'll ask us to come around and talk once they see what we've seen. You know, maybe they'll come ask us to give lectures, and gosh, we have that from your mouth to God's ears. Brian, thank you so much for today. Thanks for making
thank you, man. And we're done great. Thanks, Tro.
Yeah,
we're having a good time,
you.
and I'm learning a lot from you. And I just want to thank you publicly again. I don't know if I would still be practicing medicine if I didn't go to direct primary care. I would have burned out. I was getting to that point. I was looking, going, you know what? There has to be a better way to help people. I knew our podcast was going to reach people, but you know, just really when I get home at night and I'm calm and I'm not stressed out and I have time to sit with patients and explain things and joke and, you know, have a good time. That's what I wanted the medicine for. And I feel bad for the docs who aren't, but you know, I thank you for saying, Brian, what the hell are you doing, man? Get out.
Now. Yeah. Let them, like, as our numbers increase, we're going to hire the next round of docs. You know, we're like, they need a life beyond the insurance occurrence based garbage that most people deal with. So hopefully, you know, we can just keep doing better and better for people, and they understand the value and the service we bring, and you know, we have a whole generation of docs to grow. So I'm excited for the next round, man. You know, this first round, we just, you know, I know, you know, like it hasn't been easy though, Brian. I must say, it's like there's been some challenges along the way. I'm just thankful that people have trusted us along the way.
Well, I think I just posted something about it yesterday. And I was happy with my post because I said, you know what? You know, when you stand against the narrative and you stand up and you trust your clinical instincts, what you're seeing in clinic, your medical training, you go through that and you're called a quack, you're called a grandma killer, you're called dangerous conspiracy theory. And then you go through all this stuff. And then 5 years later, when you're vindicated, they all say, just move on. We're not going to talk about that anymore. But you have the satisfaction of you don't really need their recognition. All you do is like help the patient in front of you. And we have patients come in and go, I couldn't eat anything before. I was miserable. I was hostage of food. You know, I was, you know, if you told me not to eat bread, I would cry. And they're like, my life's so much better. You see people's joints not hurting and their mood's better and their relations, all these things that we see across the board. You go, man, I always say it's like a country song backwards. I have patients and you go, like a country song when you lose your wife and your house and you get thrown in jail and all this stuff, but it goes backwards where your life gets better. And to be a part of that, man, there's no better reward. You know, I make less money now than I did in 2019, even though people say I'm a grifter somehow, right? I don't have any money involved in any of the stuff I recommend to people, but you know, you have that job satisfaction and, you know, it's better than making a lot of money and being miserable and not helping people. Like that's kind of the road I was on, and to be able to help people every day and, you know, give them reassurances. That's and I owe a lot of that to you, Tro, because you're like, get out, man, you're going to die, you know, and I didn't see a way out because it's scary to jump out of the system. But, you know, I don't know any doctor who went direct primary care now that they're not smiling and happy and want to welcome the next person in.
Yeah, we're blessed, man. We're blessed. Yeah, absolutely. Got to thank you. Thank the listeners. Thank the Patreon supporters. Thank our patients. Thank everybody who supported us, retweeted us, liked us, and
Put up with us.
and stayed with us when we were censored and banned. So we appreciate you all. And Brian, I appreciate you.
All right. Blessings, man. I'm glad we got to do this. Good catching up with you, man.
If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon by going to lowcarbmd.com.